All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And it looks like Andrew Yang is making a big splash on TikTok. And apparently, he's getting a lot of pub and a lot of credit for it with the super young crowd. He actually had a really hilarious encounter with a young enthusiast of TikTok just recently. Cody, tell us what's going on with TikTok and how it really deeply influences and affects the future of this world.
All right, well, I'll do my best. I'll do that a friend, maybe. Anyway, though, so what happened is I saw this tweet that came out from Andrew Yang a little bit earlier today. And it's from Andrew Yang, and he said, describing an encounter with a teenager, approached him and said, "Hey, are you Andrew Yang?" And he said, "Yeah." And the kid said, "Oh, cool, I saw you on TikTok." He says, "That's how you know it's working," and tweets tags at Dave Jorgensen. I know who that is. That is the guy he works for. I think it's Washington Post. He runs their TikTok account, and he recently did a post on the platform with Andrew Yang. So I'm going to show you guys that real quick and then explain a little bit more about what the actual meaning behind all this stuff is. So anyway, here's what Andrew Yang did when he appeared on TikTok for Washington Post. Yeah, exactly. So here we go. Let me get this turned on for you guys so you can check it out. I don't want to play music too long, but you'll see it's pretty funny and it's pretty cute. And
it freaks me out. It reminds me of Ragnarok when Hemsworth is going into the garbage city and there's like that artificially enthusiastic music playing and it's like, I'm going into a dystopian universe. Yeah, that's kind of like what it looks like to me.
And again, but so getting into what that means more, I'll try to explain it the best I can for those of you who don't fully understand what TikTok actually is. It's an app. It's kind of a social media app. I believe, forgot the name of the first app. I think it was like Lyrically or something, or Musically, I think it was. There's basically the idea of the app was there's little music that jingles that play from songs in the background, and you lip sync to them and do funny stuff, and it's a social media app. Skews extraordinarily young. It's kind of, I remember the first app that I picked up and I'm like, I can't use this one, was Snapchat. I'm old now. I look at Snapchat.
You're not Snapchat?
I was like, how does this thing even work, man? So that was that for me. But now I've realized it's even gotten younger now. The youngest generation's on TikTok. And I wanted to highlight, first of all, a couple other things I want to show. Like I said, this individual here, Dave Jorgensen, who posted in the Washington Post, he posted some of the comments he got, though. We got I like him better for this. Polls raised to 100% and my president from some young users on the platform.
Okay.
And you want to talk about how young these users are? One of them asked this individual, "What in the world is NBC?" Like, genuinely, they didn't know what was MSNBC.
Yeah, that gives me hope. I'll tell you that right now. That gives me hope.
Hey, it's the youth. And then they do a couple other things. The only one that thinks he's handsome. His personality is awesome. You'll see. There's some funny stuff here. Now, that in itself is a humorous thing. But what it actually kind of is interesting about it is that is the demographic of voters, the 18 to like 29, 18 to 30 range, millennials, right? That there's been on some people, and I don't like to get into predictions of how many millennials will turn out to vote. I think it'll be a lot because, like, I don't think young people as much, correct me if I'm wrong, Card, no offense, but perhaps when you were a child, there was more of this sense of, politics is like a grown-up thing. That's for like adults.
Yeah, no, that's
I don't care about politics. Like, there wasn't the sense of engaging 15-year-olds on Medicare for all. It was
I was like to say, if Andrew Yang has his way, man, we're gonna be registering them at 14 so they can go to the voting booths at 16, so that by 18 they're seasoned voters with all their wisdom. You know what I'm saying?
But I would agree that younger voters is a larger block. I mean, would you agree that younger voters is probably a larger block now of not like a larger number of people, but there's a larger enthusiasm. Like, they'll go out and vote probably more now than they would have perhaps 20 years ago.
You
speculation,
think
but that's as far as I'll get into it.
Do you think there's more enthusiasm amongst the youth to vote, or more disassociation because they view the system as corrupt and broken and not worth engaging in? I almost feel like the younger generation, though it trends more conservative in a lot of views, which does give me hope that, human beings are capable of realizing the mistakes of the past and adjusting their current views in order to avoid them in the future. I feel like this young generation is really almost nihilist, just like, screw it. We're going to hell in a handbasket.
Before we get too far,
I'm going to be comfy until we crash.
Before we get too far on that, I want to show the next part of the video.
Okay, show the next part of the video.
What's interesting about seeing Andrew Yang doing well on TikTok and other platforms is, here is, I guess I'll scroll up so you guys can see it better. Iowa, I believe, does this annual youth straw poll where they just do a straw poll of the youth. I believe we talked about this a little bit yesterday as well, but I wanted to bring it up again and just highlight this again. So this is a demographic that Bernie Sanders, generally speaking, dominates. I mean, there's no other way of looking about it. I think I'll show you guys in a minute an Emerson poll. When Emerson tracks it, it's like Bernie kills it under 50 and gets like under 10% over 50 voters as far as age goes.
Okay.
It's crazy. We see Andrew Yang in a kind of crowded field ends up at second place at 7.4%. So he's ahead of candidates like Pete Buttigieg, and I believe he's just behind Joe Biden, which is weird to me. But still, more established candidates. There's young people that are looking at Andrew Yang about as much as anyone except Bernie Sanders, who does maintain his vice grip on that demographic in this straw poll. However, we were talking before about Emerson and the Emerson polling data. I like to pull the data up just because they generally take a good look at the age demographics and how they spread on things like this.
Okay.
And their most recent poll, I believe this came out a couple days ago, is in the state of Arizona, so state poll. But still, they note, and I want to make sure I got it here correctly. Here we go. It's kind of small. I apologize. But they note that when it comes to the younger crowd, specifically the 18 to 29 demographic, Andrew Yang leads all at 19%. Bernie Sanders has this ridiculous 35%. Best way to describe it, Bernie Sanders polls at 21% overall and 35% under 50. So there's a big drop off over 50 for Bernie Sanders. But Andrew Yang is got the inverse going for him, where he polls at 5% overall, but 19% in that really young demographic. So if he can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Rejuvenate. But if you can actually motivate younger voters, these nihilistic voters, because here's the thing, you said some of them are nihilists, some of them are also just on TikTok and don't care about stuff. And if they see a funny video of the president, they might say things like, I like him better for this, and his polls are going to raise, and that's my president. Because who's on TikTok? Not many people. So when they see a younger guy dancing around, interacting into things they interact with that could engage them, it's interesting. Because here's the other thing. I definitely don't think there's a sense from young people of, I think there's young people who, if they thought it was like a funny meme to go vote for the TikTok guy, would do it. I guess no disrespect, but in a positive way.
And then there's
of like, oh, he's the guy running for president. I saw on TikTok and he talks about NBA. I'll vote for him. Like, that exists.
And there's also a purpose to this TikTok madness. Whoa! We should edit it so that all of the screen is shaking and it changes the color of what I'm doing. It's like, whoa!
I believe the way they do it on TikTok is that they kind of have the templates in place for you, and they'll give you a template and say, do this video.
And the thing I like about TikTok is the kids get very creative within that structure to express not just their individualism, but honestly a very politically incorrect take on the world the way it is. I mean, I love a lot of these creators on TikTok. I confess that as a grown man, I have spent hours on TikTok just watching what these kids have to say.
Creeps me out.
And it's really
Creeps
funny.
me out.
Wait until you see it, bro, because you will see how a certain meme just generates and becomes like this norm, and there's the first wave of how people just try and complete it, and then you see just variation upon variation, and honestly, they're really funny. We have just defragmented the pipeline of getting good comedians to the forefront. It used to be, you had to show up to local clubs. You know what I'm saying? And then you might be able to go to Los Angeles, New York, Boston, or Chicago, and then be in the big clubs, and then hopefully some television scout saw you there and offered you a 2 a.m. late night gig so you could work your way up. Like there used to be a pipeline, but now all those pipelines have been blown to bits because legacy media has been blown to bits, and the new rat race, the new melee. The new system is social media. So yeah, I see some of these young comedians of all ages, shapes, sizes, demographics, everything super diverse, just really doing some hilarious content on TikTok, and I love it. And here's the reason why I think it's important for Andrew Yang, why he's really got to pursue this kind of thing. Because Kevin O'Leary? You know who Kevin O'Leary is, Cody?
Is he the Shark Tank guy?
Yeah, he's a Shark Tank guy. Okay.
Shout out to Shark Tank, by the way.
Yeah, what's he go by? Like Mr. Wonderful? Something like that?
Perhaps.
I believe is his. Yeah, and he's always joking about Mr. Wonderful. Now, I'm not as shrewd as he is, and I'm not completely and totally dollars and centsy as he is, but I do believe, as is stated in Atlas Shrugged, that money is a barometer of a civilization. And he had a really recent interview with Reason.com, kind of a libertarian think tank / magazine / social media platform, that in which he said something really interesting. He said, one of my kind of biggest moments I remember from my high school history lesson that, I think is true and has proven true in my life is I had this great teacher of history when I was in high school. And she said, the best leaders, the best actors, the best great men, statesmen, politicians, whatever, they're always, well, she didn't say always, and I want to speak in absolutes, and I don't want to misquote him either, so I'm paraphrasing here. But she basically highlighted to him that they're all good entertainers and storytellers. Because in the old days, if your army was marching through, you had to sit around the campfire with all of the best of your guys and tell these stories and give them the mythologies and give them the stories and what they needed to hear in a way that could disseminate through the rest of the army, and the best leaders are the ones that are able to inspire their people. Like Winston Churchill was considered a very poor peacetime leader, but an extremely effective and amazing wartime leader, because how good does it get than standing in front of your entire parliament saying, we will fight on the beaches, we will fight in the shores, you know what I'm saying? Which ends up becoming a Gary Oldman speech, So the modern kind of storytelling circuit amongst the youth, all right, is social media, places like TikTok. I would say now that video games as a storytelling medium are competing now with movies. You look at how much money a movie can make that took you a year and a half to make, and dollar for dollar, you got to question that up against the profitability of some of these breakaway video games. You know what I'm saying? And let me tell you, the Riot Games Super Bowl that's live streamed, has, I think, more viewers than the actual Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying?
Not just because I'm a League of Legends hater, the Super Bowl still is king. Super Bowl draws.
Okay, but you can't say that they're not a close. That there's
it's
not.
Crazy. There's literally millions of people. It's probably one of the more popular events. Also, you have to factor in the fact, take into account a lot of this stuff's international. One of the great things about kind of like esports, we can do a whole separate video on esports. It is, you want to talk about a sport that is like across the globe. You'll look and there's countries I didn't know existed that have people competing in esports all the time. But getting back to the viability of TikTok as a place for someone to run for president to actually be on.
Oh yeah, of course, because that's where you show up amongst the storytellers.
Hold on. I want to show you some data points why I think it's actually fascinating, particularly for Andrew Yang. It's because Andrew Yang, like we know that Andrew Yang skews young anyway, right? So one thing I do want to bring up when it comes to TikTok, this is some market research they've done. 41% of TikTok's users are between the ages 16 and 24.
Oh yeah, super young.
Very young. But there's another thing demographically that I want to highlight. Now, they highlight here the gender divide of TikTok as being 56% male, 44% female.
Interesting.
I would say that's actually not that. Was it not even 8%? That's only not too. I think within 10% is about, because you would expect it to be about 50-50, but I don't know, plus minus 10%. Anyway, Yang needs help with the women demographic. He doesn't do great in it.
Yeah.
If 44% of, and again, they mentioned up here, like the 9th most popular app in the world and the most popular app in the App Store is female, that's a pretty good way to reach young. I don't want this to be taken incorrectly. It's a good way for the Andrew Yang campaign to reach young female voters.
Yeah, no, it's
for
true.
Political reasons.
No, because look, the older female voters, and I know, no, don't worry. We're not thinking you're some kind of, a PERV just for having said that. There's actual data that supports what you're saying, because older voters are far less influenceable. The data show that when you have voted 3 times in a row in your first elections for one party, there's a 90-some-odd% chance that is the party you will vote for the rest of your life. And it's the same reason why on my 18th birthday, me and all my other dorm mates at BYU received a Gillette Mach 3. We were receiving so many free Gillette Mach 3s when, the corporate mailing lists had figured out that we were turning 18 because they figure, college guys got to shave. And if we can get them addicted with a freebie to Gillette Mach 3, there'll be a Gillette Mach 3 person. And except for like the 4 or 5 months where I quit Gillette because of that ridiculous commercial that they had, you know what I'm saying? And I tried the Schick Quattro, I ended up going back to the Gillette Mach 3. It worked, okay? So of course, if you're struggling with the female demographic, what are you going to do? Send out tons and tons of mailers to the boomer females, 60% of which want nothing to do with you because you're a Democrat. And of that other 40%, they're just going to do what the establishment Dem mailer says anyway. You know what I'm saying? You can waste so much money trying to teach an old dog new tricks, or you can just try and influence the puppies. So, I mean, to me, if you're trying to be at all strategic and sensible about furthering your good cause, you would need to go after the most influenceable, and I shouldn't say influenceable because that sounds almost predatory, but I would say like open to new ideas, people open to learning and a new conversation, because really UBI requires that. It requires a conversation. You know, the freedom dividend requires a time of explanation, and young people, that's what they got. They got time and they're willing to give it to you. And so, yeah, I think it's really wise, because not only do you get like this cool hip vibe, like let's just face it. I was in an argument recently with one of my college professors about, I think it was like drone strikes of Barack Obama in 2010 or something like that. I don't even remember what it was about. But he did say something funny at the close of one of his comments. He said, you know what, no matter what you think about Barack Obama, there's something you can never take away from him that no other president has had in the past, like 15 years like him. I was like, what? And he said, he's cool. And to a certain extent, that's true. Cool is just something that you can chase but never catch if you're chasing it. And it's that thing that is defined by the younger generation that just is what it is because they say it is. And if you can be that, you have a complete and total advantage. So if this makes Andrew Yang one step closer to cool, then boom shakalaka, I think he should do it.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. There's a couple of data points I want to get to, though.
Okay.
One, because again, it's just like, why does it matter that Andrew Yang's on some kids app? Like, you gave some reasons, but still, it's like some kids app Andrew Yang's on. Who cares, right? The reason why I think for not Andrew Yang, if you're a candidate running for 2020, man, these are some data points you want to take a look at. I think people don't realize something about young people, but 9 out of 10 TikTok users use the app multiple times.
Oh, yeah, totally.
No, hold on. I don't think I understand how ridiculous that is. The average, I think they mentioned it in the study here. Yeah, 3/4 of all apps are downloaded, accessed once, and then entirely forgotten. Holy cow, man. Every day, multiple times a day,
Yeah.
9 out of 10 users.
TikTok's unique, bro.
I guarantee you 9 out of 10 Twitter users are on every day. Here's the next thing I want to highlight. It's a growing number of adults on the platform as well.
Yeah.
So in less than 18 months, the number of U.S. adults from TikTok users October 17 to March 19 grew 5.5 times. You can actually see the largest incremental growth was September 18 to March 19. They don't have data up to October 19. So I understand why, because here's the thing. We've talked many times, and you gave a lot of really good reasons why it's important for candidates to be on social media, why it's important for candidates to be using social media to reach audiences that they're not reaching through the news. But why so many candidates are seemingly ignoring this reach that, I mean,
dude, I
the
think
way
they're
I'm reading
stupid.
into this is somebody who normally would not know who Andrew Yang was, knows who he was because he was in that app, walked up to him and said, hey, I recognize you.
You wanna
and
know-
that's potentially a voter. As goofy as it sounds, you might win a primary that way.
Yeah, and also you say, oh, they're just a bunch of kids. They're just a bunch of kids. I don't know, bro. Like, I got to tell you, one of the first reasons why I forayed into TikTok was because, you know, there were some kids in the Boy Scout troop that I volunteer with doing like TikTok, and it looked kind of funny where there's like, you have to act out this thing, and they were in the hallway just trying to act out this thing and then uploading and posting. I was like, okay, cool. What is this? You know, I always try and keep up on things, if you know what I'm saying, with these young guys that I volunteer with. But what was interesting was I was actually producing a movie in which we were thinking, okay, this is a mid-budget to low-budget feature. We could waste all of our money trying to chase down some A-lister who hopefully might give us some clout and some views. But then I said, you know what, dude? What if we actually just got one of these social media stars on one of these crazy new platforms? Because when some of these new platforms come out, you'll get kids with millions of followers in like a year's time. So I actually researched like the top 10 TikTok people. And let me tell you, one of them, Lauren Gray, like within, I think it was like 12 months, went from like 16-year-old Taylor Swift wannabe, all right, to hero with millions of followers and signing record deals. In fact, now when you look her up on Wikipedia, it doesn't say TikTok social personality. It actually says American singer-songwriter, right? You know what I'm saying? So TikTok is breeding a bunch of mini Kardashians here. She's making more money than I am as like a 19-year-old. You know, and unlike Taylor Swift, she didn't need a record label. She didn't need to impress some executive who had a boss that was impressed and then had a director who was impressed, who took it to the CEO and the creative supervisor. No, she just went straight to the people.
Before we get too long into this,
okay.
I have an interesting question for you. People always talk about Andrew Yang and other candidates. Like, what are some media personalities, people they can reach out to spread their message, right? Well, I have a question, as you brought up this individual, Lauren Gray. Is 2,092 million likes good?
Yeah. Well, think about it. Everybody talks about, it's Nicolas Cage, Yang Gang.
I was looking at the numbers, and I was like, hold on a second. That's 2,092 in millions. Like, holy cow. So we always think about where's like these large reach. And I just want to highlight that. For candidates ignoring a platform where we're seeing reach, like, I mean, she's the outlier. She has, by the way, more likes by like thousands than TikTok itself, so it's crazy. But still, that is something I think a lot of times people overlook. Like, I think of people with big YouTube channels, people with big radio followings, people with big TV followings.
Well, like, and let's really analyze this.
This is now internet following you can have, man. It's massive. I mean, this is a large. I mean, this is a list of the largest accounts, and you'll notice. I mean, I don't know, man. I just think it is kind of foolish. I think, and I think hopefully this exchange with Andrew Yang woke him up to the fact that, wait a minute. There is a big audience out here I am just missing on right now that I could be out there getting.
So here's my question for you,
Hopefully he
dude.
recognizes that.
So here's my question for you. How much pull has Nicolas Cage given the Yang Gang?
Well, hold on.
How many converts shall you say
but he's unique.
he's brought to the cause?
Unique.
No, I know he's unique.
But
let's
he
talk
donated
about
and never said anything publicly ever.
Oh, okay, fine. But let's talk about Chris Jericho. Let's talk let's talk everybody
Jericho helped
on the list. Yeah, no, I'm not saying hasn't helped, and he's not besmirching him. But I mean, I'm not saying that to besmirch him. But I'm just saying, if you got Lauren Gray to go Yang Gang and say, I'm voting for this cat, you should register on this tiny URL link and show up with me on November 4th to vote for him too. I'm actually not unconvinced that Lauren Gray couldn't throw out more pull for the Yang Gang.
Well,
and more new registrants and new voters. You know what I'm saying? I think the boomers that run both parties are absolutely missing out on a huge new wave of popularity and access by skipping TikTok, skipping the social media stars, and still doing business the way that they were doing business 30 years ago. And I don't know. I really asked myself that question. Could Lauren Gray get more new registrants, okay, for the DNC if they strategically struck a deal with her than X celebrity out there? And I think that's a toss-up with just sheer volume. It's like insects. They lay so many eggs that the species survive millions of years. You know what I'm saying? When you just have that many likes and that many followers, like, you can't not think that it would be explosive.
Yeah. I mean, let's see. I believe the number, I'm reading this right, there was actually it's some discrepancy in the data here. They don't know if it's 1 million a day or 1 billion a day. Still, ton of views every day on the platform, and I think it's a great point. I think that's kind of an interesting question there. Could Lauren Gray tilt an election?
Yeah,
interesting question. I think, like I said, hopefully Andrew Yang
is that our thumbnail? Could Lauren Gray tilt the election?
Well, tell you what, the viewers will know before we do. Anyway, it was,
and it's weird thinking about weird thinking about a girl a decade younger than me having more political sway. It's almost frustrating thinking that, like, when I was 19, I was so stupid. I was probably still wearing my soccer shorts around, with flip flops. And then here's a 19-year-old that's got 1 billion followers. It's like, what the heck?
Well, that's a separate question. But I don't know. Like I said, I think it's interesting. I think it's really cool. Like I said, I hope this serves almost a kind of a wake-up call, not just for Andrew Yang, but other candidates that says, like, hey, there's people out there that probably honestly couldn't tell you anyone is running for president, but if you have a video that does kind of well on TikTok, suddenly they'll know who you are.
Yeah.
What does that mean for an election? Who knows exactly, but I think it could be big for Yang. Yang's doing well with the youth anyway, so for him. But you brought up a good point. I think for any candidate, it really should be an outlet they pursue. So that's all I got. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Anyway, let us know what you guys think. Is it because there's times where investing in the youth kind of ends up just being a big fat nothing burger. I think Bernie Sanders was really disappointed in 2016 in a lot of those states and a lot of those primaries where we saw tons of posters everywhere. We saw tons of hilarious memes the week leading up to the election. Man, we thought it would be a landslide and then none of the youth show up. I forgot. Oh, I was busy that day. And they didn't really deliver the goods, right?
I forgot to vote.
I just
to vote and I just didn't.
So I think there's times where, I've hired really young guys that had a lot of passion on a cool project, and it's been like, whoa, this guy's ahead of his time. Holy smoke, he's 50 cents on the dollar of what a guy 10 years older than would be doing, and he does better work, and this is the best choice I ever made. And there's other times where I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid's a doofus and an idiot. What was I thinking? You know what I'm saying? It really just splits one of two ways. There's no middle ground with these cats, So I think Bernie Sanders is a little bit disappointed in a lot of the youth turnout. He himself said that in that, famous video where he was talking about, I always tried to represent the least among us. And he talked about why he didn't succeed, why he thought he didn't succeed as much. And I think he was disappointed in the youth turnout. So I'm not here to say that, young is best and don't trust anybody over 30 and so on and so forth. But I'm here to say that I think it's a gamble that is worth taking. And I want to know what you think. Do you think that the Yang gang and also Andrew Yang should invest a lot more heavily in this Gen Z internet generation, and if there would be a strategic advantage there? So anyway, like the video if you haven't a chance to like the video. Subscribe if you haven't a chance to subscribe. And make sure if you want to pick up a hat, you check us out at ProblemSolverPolitics.com. This is Problem Solver Politics. We will see you in the next video.